We're starting. Hello, there it is. We're starting in chapter 8 of 2 Kings. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to start talking about King Joram. I mean, I'm looking at my book as I'm working things out. I write a king's name, scratch it out. No, that's wrong. I write a king's name, scratch it out. No, that's wrong. So if I can get confused by it, you know, I'd have great compassion for you guys. You're probably going, so we're just going to talk about the kings. We're going to read down here, starting in verse 16. That's where we started. I didn't really talk a whole lot about the first part of 2 Kings last week. I thought it was really interesting that I'm not going to teach about it. I just want to say this woman is the same woman that her son was healed. Okay. And so apparently there had been 7 years of famine, and this woman had to leave, and then she came back, right, to the land. And then the other thing was Gehazi. Right. Verse 4, the king was talking to Gehazi, the servant. He was the one who was struck with leprosy, right? Because he went to Naaman and deceived him and got money from him. But what does that tell you? I think this is something to think about. What does it tell you about God and about this prophet?
Now, when we say the servant of the man of God, are we talking about Gehazi or are we talking about the king?
Talking about Elijah.
Okay.
He's a servant of Elijah. He's still Elijah's servant, even though he was struck with leprosy for his sin. That's what it's saying. And he says, Gehazi's going to the king and saying, hey, this is the woman. This is the woman that Elijah restored her son to life. And so she tells the king about it. And then we see Elijah coming to Damascus to, what is he doing? He's telling Hazael that he's going to be the king, right? Ben-Hadad thinks he's going to survive, but he's not going to survive, right? And then we see this scene where Elijah is weeping over the fact that Hazael is going to be the next king because he's going to destroy. It's going to be bad. But to me, that picture of the servant of Elijah still serving. So there's got to be a couple of things that happen here. First and foremost, is God forgiving?
Absolutely.
So let me just say, you have a consequence in your life. And what we pray a lot of times is, oh God, just help me to overcome this. Well, what does it mean to overcome a difficult decision, a bad decision that you made? Hansi made a bad decision, and he paid a price for it. But did God choose to heal him?
No.
But what did God do?
He still used it.
He still used it.
What did you say? Because he also, his family got to do, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what kind of testimony do you think that man had?
He had a powerful testimony that I did wrong and I was punished by God, and I'm still telling you about how good God is.
I think that is exactly why that's there. And that is kind of the setup for everything else that we're talking about, because there are some hidden examples in this completely destroyed society of people who are doing the right thing in the midst of difficult situations. That guy could have gone back and just trashed God, trashed the prophet, done all these things, but he didn't do that because he learned something. He learned that God is just, right? God is faithful, and when you know, think about what it would be like for Elijah to have to look at him as he's decaying in front of him and still being used. That's a
But
very,
even for us, our sins are forgiven, but genuine repentance is required for true forgiveness of sin.
right,
And sometimes we just approach like with a grocery list. Oh, God, forgive me for everything I've done that was wrong today.
And we want to forget about it, let's forget.
And just automatically believe that everything I've done is gonna be forgiven without any true repentance
well,
on my
but
part.
we use that word forgiveness as a panacea for making everything okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
And that's the point I'm getting at. I think he genuinely asked for forgiveness, but God did not relent on his consequence.
yes.
So sometimes we have done something wrong. Of course, I think about women in prison. They get out, they're a changed person. But God is not removing from them the stain of their conviction. And part of the question we have to ask ourselves is, what was the benefit to Gehazi having leprosy and still being able to serve? What's the benefit of that for him?
Well, when I read the part about his family receiving that consequence too,
So a man from every generation.
that's pretty harsh.
Because what was the problem with this man? What was the problem with the servant, Gehazi? What did he do?
He lied and deceived.
Okay, he was a deceiver.
Mm-hmm.
So what did having leprosy do for him?
It kicked him out of everything because I didn't think the leopards were sent to a colony.
Well, he's
But
still
yet
working.
Yeah,
and that to me is a miracle all in itself.
Well, it wasn't that because Naaman wasn't he a leper? Wasn't he still serving? It's just that people wouldn't be seeing the leprosy in him necessarily, and they didn't have to be close to each other either. But the point I'm getting at is God sometimes, it's like the picture of the lamb on the shoulders of Jesus. He has to break their leg in order to keep them from running away. Isn't that what he did with this servant? He kind of broke his leg.
Yeah.
So the servant would learn to trust him instead of running off and trying to do his own thing. Right? Because that's a contrast to the woman that was a faithful servant who fell on hard times, but never lost her faith, never did anything to harm or hurt or disparage the reputation of the Lord or the prophet. But Gehazi, this man, really ruined the reputation of the prophet and God by doing what he did. God said, you know, I've forgiven you, but I'm going to keep you with a broken leg to remind you and your family, generations, what is expected. I really think that's why that's there. Because he is redeemable, he is usable, he is valuable, okay? So anyway, then Elijah tells Hazael, hey, you're gonna be the next king, but you're going to be one of the worst, most despotic, horrible. I mean, it's just devastating. And so he dies, and Hazael becomes king in his place, and then we get to King Joram of Israel. So he's the son of who?
Joram.
Yeah,
Ahab.
son of Ahab.
They have the bad.
Yeah, Ahab the bad. Okay, he was 32 when he became king, and he ruled 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. All right. He is married to who?
The daughter.
Daughter of Ahab.
Okay, married And what else do we know about him?
He did evil in the sight of the Lord.
See, you know, it was
It
so
is,
this is what is so hard. He is not, you know,
so did he marry his sister?
hold on a second. See, this is when I kept going back and forth and back and forth. In the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being then king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. Okay, so I've got the wrong one.
That's, yeah, he's
That's
married
right.
to the daughter of Ahab.
He's married to the daughter of Ahab, so I've got the wrong one.
Okay.
I kept thinking, dang it, I know I'm doing, this is, yeah. So that first part's right, but I've got it wrong. I mean, I'm not kidding you, I kept going back and forth.
So you're thinking of Jehoram.
Yes,
Okay.
so let me get back to that. All right, so he was 30, was he 32?
Jehoram,
Look at it, the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, Israel, Jehoshaphat then became king of Judah, Joram the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. So Jehoram, okay.
Yeah.
So it's Jehoram, he was 32. Oh my
He did
gosh,
years.
yeah. And years old, and he ruled I hear people going, sorry, 8 years, married daughter of Ahab. Sorry about that, guys. Did evil.
And didn't Jehoshaphat kind of arrange that?
Yep,
Okay.
he sure did.
Now, this is the guy from Judah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Did evil in God's sight, but God, what does he say about, what did God say about it? But God was not willing, right?
He wasn't willing to destroy Judah.
because of David, right?
He was not willing to destroy him because of the covenant with
David.
David. God is sure good. And so what happens? Who revolts? Edom. Okay. So the people that revolt are Edom and Libnah. Libnah, revolt. At the same time. And what did they do? What did this king do? He went to war, didn't he?
Or Jehoram, right?
Yeah,
Is that-
it's
okay.
still under him. He still went to war, but what? He was not successful. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, it says in verse 22, Edom revolted, Libnah revolted, right? To this day. So that means they were not successful. They were still revolting. They were still not, were they revolting in many ways, but they were still fighting against him, okay? So, what happens to Joram? Died. Okay. So this is in 2 Kings 8:16. So he died.
So who, who? Jehoram died? I'm looking at verse 24. So Joram slept with his fathers. Joram. And was buried
The
with
rest,
his.
the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, they're not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah.
So did they just switch Jehoram and Joram?
Yeah, this is why it's so dang hard, because they're both actually named Jehoram.
So
And they
Joram
have
is
the same-
Jehoram.
They both both kings of Judah and Israel have the same name,
Oh, okay.
not the same.
but they're not the same person.
Okay.
This is why, look, I'm not kidding you. I was like, This is, because like you get going and you're reading along and you gotta slow down, which is what I had to do. And because I even got it wrong here, right? You gotta slow down and say that verse is the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah.
So,
And he was buried in the city of David, which is Jerusalem, Judah.
so Joram is king of Israel and Jehoram is king of Judah.
That's why I put son of Jehoshaphat.
Okay, that's good.
Judah.
Well, also,
Died.
if you read longer, they'll start using pronouns. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, but who is he?
I know, crazy. But in 25, it says Jehoram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel.
Right. Then we
I
have,
thought we were talking about the king of Judah in 23.
right, so then let's go to Jehoram. And I'll.
Are you
Be
okay?
careful.
Yes,
Yes. It's just, I got my foot, it's all right, didn't mean to scare you. Let me get this out so I can nip on the nose. So,
You should see my page.
in the
I've got
12
errors.
years, Jehoram, okay, so this is verse 25 of. Okay, it says in the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab. What happens? Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, begins to reign.
Mhm.
So he is the son of who?
Ahaziah,
Uh-huh,
he is the son of Jehoram of Judah.
Mhm.
Right.
Jehoram of Judah, yes.
What?
Jehoram, king of Judah,
Son
is the
of
father of Ahaziah.
Jehoram.
okay, that is in verse 25. Okay, Ahaziah is 22 years old.
When he became king.
Yeah, he's 22 years old. He reigned 1 year. That's all he reigned. Okay, his mother's name was Athaliah.
Athaliah.
Okay, so
Or
his
something like
mother is the what? Granddaughter of Omri.
King of Israel.
Who was Omri?
King of
Ahab's
Israel.
father. Okay, Ahab's dad. Makes her the granddaughter of, that's why she's granddaughter.
Okay.
He's the great grandson. Ahaziah is the great grandson of Omri. He's the grandson of Ahab. All right, he's the king of Judah. So we see a little trend going here, right? All right. What did he do? He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. He walked.
So he's bad.
And he did evil in the sight of the Lord,
As Ahab, and
just like Ahab had done.
did evil. He did a lot of evil. So that means he wasn't just worshiping the golden calves up there, but he was doing Baal worship, right?
Yes. But now.
He had to be.
Who was on Ahaziah?
Ahaziah, Judah, son of Jehoram, who is the king of Judah. After Jehoram died, after 8 years of rule, he rules 1 year, and he is just like one of the worst kings. And the thing is, how bad would he have been if he had ruled 8 years? No, really. Okay. He went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael. So he goes to war against Hazael with Ahaziah, Ahazia. Okay? Goes to war with Joram.
Okay.
They go to war together because they're buds.
It seems like a trend.
Yep.
So in verse 28, it says, he went with Joram, and on down it says, wounded Joram. And I've got a line over here that says, which Joram is this?
This is gonna be the king of Israel. Because he goes to Jezreel. Okay? And he's not going to Jerusalem. And so this is what it says. He went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans wounded Joram. So he's wounded by the Arameans. And King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel the wounds which the Arameans had inflicted on him at Ramah when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. That's why it's telling you that they're at war. He's going to fight. He gets wounded. Okay, he's wounded. And Ahaziah goes to see Joram because he's worried about his brother-in-law, right? Or his uncle, or whatever they do. His uncle. All right. Because he was sick. I love that. He was sick. He was sick. He was feeling good. A nice little wound
Well,
though.
they made a big deal out of what he was sick with, so it sounds like he really was sick.
Yeah,
They didn't have antibiotics.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
And that guy.
So, right. So then we get into Second Chronicles. Let's just talk a little bit about. This is Second Chronicles 22, 7 and 8. So if we want to move off of that. Second Chronicles 22, 7 and 8. What is important about this verse is he's only been ruling 1 year, okay? So it says that the death of Hazael was from the Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord took him out. Because he was so dang wicked. I mean, there's just no other way around it. He was a bad guy. So we're gonna look at.
Are you in 22 or 21?
I'm getting there. Let me get 22. 22.
There, she said.
Now, the destruction of Ahaziah was from God, and then he went to Joram, for when he came, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. It came about when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brother ministering to Ahaziah and slew them. So the Lord took him out through who? Jehu.
Yes.
So Jehu is the messenger of the Lord. That's basically how we want to see that. So we're going to read this a little bit. Again, Second Chronicles 22. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, this is the king of Judah, his youngest son. There's a whole bunch of things going on. we'll just go back to, let's just go back, this is where I really wanted to pick up Jehoram in 21. We see the disease that they were talking about. So in 21, we find out who this guy is. He's a pretty terrible guy.
Tell me where you are again.
In 2 Chronicles 21. Jehoshaphat sleeps with his father, he died. And is buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Jehoram his son became king in his place. What did he do? He had all of his brothers killed. Killed all the brothers. Yep, killed his brothers. Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariah, Michael, and Shephadiah. Well, I'm making it up as I go. These are the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. Their father gave them gifts, gold, the precious things, cities, but he gave the kingdom to Jehoram because he was the firstborn. So Jehoram was the firstborn, and so he got the kingdom. When he took over the kingdom, he made himself secure, killed all his brothers with the sword, and some of the rulers of Israel also. So he also killed rulers. Anybody that would stand in his way. Jehoram was 32 when he became king. He reigned 8 years. Got that. He walked in the way of the king of Israel just as the house of Ahab did, for Ahab's daughter was his wife. So Ahab's daughter,
You have that up at the top.
his wife, I'm gonna write it again just because
Okay.
I've gotten it.
Okay.
He did evil in the sight of the Lord. If the Lord was not willing to destroy him, in his days Edom revolted, we got that. Then we see in verse 9, Jehoram crossed over with his commanders and all his chariots with him, and they arose by night and struck down the Edomites who were surrounding him and the commanders of the chariots. So Edom revolted against Judah to this day, and Libnah revolted at the same time. Why? Because he had forsaken the Lord his God, the God of his fathers. They revolted because he forsake the Lord. Edom and Libnah revolt because he stopped following God. He stopped doing it, so it caused a revolt.
Now we're Edom and Libnah, and,
They-
they were in
This is
Judah.
part of Judah.
With Jehoram.
So part of Judah.
Yeah, well, they were part of Judah, but they were controlled by Judah.
Well, they were under his rule because when Jehoshaphat was king, they came under his rule because
Right.
they liked the way things were done.
Right, that's exactly right. And so they got their own king, they made their own king, and decided, we're gonna separate out, we're not, this isn't working for us anymore. Exactly right, thank you. So Jehoram crossed over with his commanders, right? Edom revolted because of his faith. He made high places in the mountains of Judah and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the harlot and led Judah astray. He led Judah into sin. How heartbreaking. The son of Jehoshaphat, sitting here this whole time complaining and whining because, oh, my dad, he's such a weakling. He just keeps following God. This is no fun, right? Yeah, what a prude. Yeah. So, what happens to him? A letter comes to him from who?
Elijah.
Elijah.
Which is interesting that he wrote it before he died.
Exactly. Letter from Elijah.
I have a word from the Lord for you.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a word, let's see if it's gonna be there. Elijah. Letter. Can't write the whole thing. The letter says, dude, your time's up. He says, Because you've not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father and the ways of Asa king of Judah, we did a nice little study about them, great, good reminder. But have walked in the way of the kings of Israel and caused Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the harlot as the house of Ahab played the harlot. You've also killed your brothers, your own family, who were better than you. Now, when was this written?
After Elijah died. Oh, he wrote it before he died.
Before he
It was
died.
Delivered after
He
died.
doesn't
Okay, he knew what was gonna happen.
Amazing. Behold, the Lord is going to strike your people, your sons, your wives, and all your possessions with great calamity. And you will suffer severe sickness and disease of your bowels until your bowels come out because of the sickness day by day. Wow. He is going to die a painful death.
Yeah. That sounds well.
I'm just going, I'm reading it, I'm going. Hey. Yeah.
He's gonna definitely die a painful death. How sad. Now, I mean, there's a whole lot about this, and I kind of want to talk about this stuff.
Where was this letter all this time?
I think it's up by
Who?
the sons of the prophet, maybe Elijah. Had it, somebody had it. Right,
Okay.
so
Everything falls out.
the Lord stood up against Jehoram, the spirit of the Philistines, the Arabs, and the Ethiopians. And they came against Judah and invaded it and carried away all the possessions found in the king's house together with his sons and his wives, so that no son was left to him except Jehoaz, the youngest of his sons. Wow. So the Lord leaves Jehoaz. We'll be talking about him soon. The Lord leaves. Why did he do this? Why did he leave Jehoaz?
Because of his covenant with David.
That's right. Because of covenant. So after all this, the Lord smote him in his bowels with an incurable sickness. And it came about in the course of time, at the end of 2 years, that his bowels came out because of his sickness, and he died in great pain. And his people made no fire for him like the fire for his fathers. He was 32 years old. He became king. He reigned in Jerusalem 8 years, and he departed with no one's regret. And they buried him in the city of David, but not the king.
And then nobody missed him.
Nobody missed that guy.
The people of Judah knew he was going down the wrong path and they were glad to be rid of him.
Well, that's why, Edom and Libnah revolted, because everyone knew that he was doing wrong and leading the people into sin and making them do the Baal worship. And
So the people were basically good. And he was trying to lead them.
Yeah, at
in
this
the
point, I
wrong
was
way.
getting confused about Judah and Israel. Israel is the one that has all the bad kings,
Uh-huh.
and now we have one in Judah.
Yeah, some of the kings bad, some of the kings partner
I have
bad.
Israel, evil kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, Israel's evil kings, exactly right.
It's sad to die with,
That,
Right.
well, no, that no one cares.
no one cared.
Well,
Probably
it gets
glad
worse, doesn't it?
nobody cares.
Because then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place. So who is Ahaziah?
The son
The son of Jehoram.
king of Judah.
And he reigns 1 year. He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Mom said, oh no, you don't want to do that, right?
Mm.
Wicked counsel, what a terrible thing. He did evil in the sight of the Lord like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to his destruction. I mean, your dad just dies this horrible death. You've got war on every side. Does this sound familiar to what's going on?
I was just thinking that.
It is so scary. Does God use sickness and disease to punish us?
Apparently,
Apparently he does.
I never really
He
believed,
can, yes,
but
He does do it.
yes.
He does do it.
He did here.
So this is, we go back to Gehazi. Gehazi, the servant of Elijah, really blew it big time and paid a lifelong consequence, even to the generations of his children, his whole life, his whole generation, right?
God,
But you see him serving. Because he had growth from that. He had spiritual growth and recognized, yeah, I deserve this. I'm getting the humility now he's serving. This king, this guy, sees what just happened to his dad, but listens to the counselors that they have.
Yeah.
Right, his grandfather. This is his grandfather.
Well, there's no redeemable quality.
There's nothing in him. He sees nothing in his dad. Even though there's a prophecy. Even the people see it. But this guy goes ahead and listens to Ahab in order to maintain control because he thinks this is the way to do it. This is a horrible situation. Talk about bad advisors.
Yeah, what's amazing to me is that Jehoshaphat was his grandfather.
Right,
Mm.
right. And
So he had this good example in his life right in town, you know. They lived in the same palace maybe. I don't know how the housing was, but instead you're listening to your grandfather who's
your other grandfather, his heck a lot more fun.
yeah.
Well, but he went down the wrong path when he married the daughter of Ahab.
Right, because he's married the granddaughter.
Well,
Right?
Jehoram married the daughter.
The daughter, his son
Yeah,
marries the granddaughter,
yeah.
okay?
Does that make?
Well, I guess what they were trying to do was,
Keep
like in
unity.
Jehoshaphat's situation, he was trying to bring the kingdom back together
Right,
by marrying in the families, you know.
right, he thought he could influence the evil.
Yeah.
He thought he could make a difference, he thought, let's work together, let's try to, but you see, what is that message to us? Is it Corinthians, be assured bad company corrupts.
Corrupts good every time.
I mean,
Where is that? Where is that?
Corinthians
It's in our
5:8.
I know, when were you looking for it?
First Corinthians 5:8, is that it, 5, 7, and 8?
Okay. You know what, I'm looking for it.
It is bad company corrupts good morals.
Yeah.
You cannot, I mean, you cannot be friends with the world.
Right.
You can't be friends. You can hang a little bit. I have people that I minister to, but I have the focus and the goal of the gospel with that person. And they know I'm a Christian, and they know that I will not allow certain things. I'm not gonna drink, I'm not gonna do this, that, the other, blah, 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 all that stuff. But, you know, there is ministry. We can't be of the world. We have to be in it, but we can't be of it.
It says, let us therefore celebrate the festival, not with the old leaven, the leaven of malice and evil, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. That's 1 Corinthians.
Okay, where is
1533 is do not be misled, bad company corrupts.
1533? I knew it
Is
was
that
on
First
there.
Corinthians?
1 Corinthians 15:33.
Yeah.
There you go. I knew it was in there.
Yes.
You know, I had a very good friend when our kids were becoming teenagers. And one of the things I remember her saying so
Or you don't
often
have the
about
same
teenage kids
Oh, yeah.
is that
Right.
one of the things she would often say about teenage kids is if you want to know who your child is, because your child will hide from you, you look at their friends. And that's who they are. And that reminds me of bad company corrupts bad morals.
Good morals.
So it matters. Good morning. Yeah. Yeah. It matters who you hang with, who you're best friends with, who you share and do. And that doesn't mean you don't witness to them. But with
Right.
these kids, there's a fine line between being that witness and being
try to
their
tell me,
best
I'm
friend.
just trying to be a good example. You know, and I'm like, right.
It's
Jealous.
true.
I've heard that said, because people say that all the time.
Yes.
I can go and be a witness.
No,
It doesn't work that way.
No.
My very best friend's father was a Baptist preacher. And he witnessed to the Mormons in his little bitty town in South Texas. And when he died, many of those Mormons came and were baptized in the Baptist church.
Wow.
And we're talking about our children being, I said, my child's not a Baptist minister. He's not around them because he's there to change them.
Right.
And you just have to step in.
Right.
You just have to step in.
Right. Isn't that what God was trying to do over and over again? How does God step in to our circumstances?
Yeah, well, it stays there all the time.
I use the word CALAMITY, calamity.
Good word.
It's a biblical word.
Yeah.
Calamity, that's how he steps in. That's how he goes in and he says, wait a second now, you know, we're not harmed by the thing that's going on, and we're not stepping back saying, oh, this is not working out the way I thought it. Wonder what God's doing here. That's what he's trying to get us to do. It says, in this situation, how did Ahaziah die? He died at the hand of Jehu, right? Because he went out with Joram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. And it came about when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he fought the princes of Judah, and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers ministered to Ahaziah and slew them. He also sought Ahaziah, because what's he doing? He's fighting. He caught him while he was hiding in Samaria. Now, why didn't he go to Jerusalem? I don't understand. He's hiding in Samaria. They brought him to Jehu, put him to death, and buried him. For they said, he is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So there was no one of the house of Ahaziah to retain the power of the kingdom.
But didn't we read, didn't Jehoshaphat arrange that marriage
Yes,
back then?
not of the son, the grandson, but of the son.
Of the son.
Yeah, he did, because he thought he was doing something
He thought he
good.
was doing it right.
But he paid a consequence for that, and his heart was fully, because after that was chapter 20, all the things that he was doing, and God blessed him. And he served 25 years, that's a long time for a king. Verse 10, now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw her son was dead, she rose and destroyed all the royal offspring of the house of Judah. What a gal. But Jehoshaphat, the king's daughter, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons who had been put to death, and placed him and his nurse in a bedroom. So Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada, the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she would not put him to death. He was hidden with them in the house of God 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. So this woman, Ahaziah's grandma, ruled how long?
6 years.
6 years over Judah.
Wait, his grandma.
His grandmother. Oh, his mother. Sorry. Mom ruled 6 years over Judah. She immediately killed the other sons to do that.
Were they her sons?
Probably some of them were. But he had other wives.
So who was she planning on taking over when she dies?
Well, I don't think she was planning on dying. She thought,
Died.
I think she thought he would be able to do it.
To live long.
Forever and ever and ever?
Apparently so. That's what she seems to think.
Maybe she thought she would take another husband and have other children.
Maybe she did.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, so. Are y'all comfortable warm? Do I need the air or anything on it? Y'all okay?
It's getting warm.
Okay,
It's getting warm,
well,
just a little bit. We're in it.
just go up there and hit that fan up there, that little black thing on the wall.
But how are y'all? Are y'all comfortable?
It doesn't matter.
But just hit it on medium. or
She's hot.
It's
Yeah.
happy hot.
Okay.
I'm not hot.
Yes,
but-
it is.
But
Watch out.
I don't know.
medium,
Hit this button.
no, hit medium,
Hit me.
low, medium,
There you go.
That's it.
that's it.
Just getting the air moving will be good.
So let's get to Jehu. So here we are now, Elijah the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets in 2 Kings chapter 9. and said to him, gird up your loins and take this flask of oil in your hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. When you arrive there, search out Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, not the same Jehoshaphat.
Not
And
the
go
same.
in, not the same guy. He's from Judah. I mean, he's from Israel. And go in and bid him arise from among his brothers and bring him to the inner room. Then take the flask of oil, pour it on his head and say, thus says the Lord, I've anointed you king over Israel. Then open the door and flee and do not wait. Get out of there quickly. So here we go. He is anointed by God to be the king. Okay, now it was first told to him by Elijah. Remember way back, Elijah, right? So that he was first told, and so Elijah is the one that's got the letters. That's what I'm saying. Elijah gave everything to Elijah. Elijah starts distributing as the Lord leads him this information to all the people about what's going on. Okay? So he has a word for him. The prophet tells him that. And he says, he arose and went to the house and poured the oil on him. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I've anointed you king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. You shall strike the house of Ahab your master, and I will make that I may avenge the blood of my servants and the prophets and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. Remember that way back? Okay, so the reason for the anointing, his job is to avenge the blood of the prophets, servants, and who else? To avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of the servants of the Lord. Of the Lord. That's his job.
Are we talking about priests there?
I think we're talking about priests, prophets, and servants,
Okay.
the whole group. He says, for the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab every male person, both bond and free in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah. The dog shall eat Jezebel in the territory of Jezreel, and none shall bury her. Then he opened the door. So he's saying he's going to avenge the blood. He's going to kill the entire house of Ahab, and Jezebel will be eaten by dogs, right?
We read, that's what it's saying.
Yep. He said, the dog shall eat Jezebel in the territory of Jezreel. None shall bury her. She will not even bury. Be buried. Okay. So Jehu came out. It was so interesting, the stuff that happened to them. Jehu comes out to the servants of his master. Now Jehu came out to the servants of his master and said to him, even one said to him, is all well? Why did this mad fellow come to you? And he said to him, you know very well the man and his talk. You heard what he said, basically. They said, it is a lie. Tell us now. Like, they're like, what? You're going to go against, you're going to kill off Ahab, his whole line? And he said, thus and thus. He said, this is what he said. That's what he said. Thus says the Lord, I have anointed you king over Israel. So Jehu's announcing, yep, this is it. I've been anointed. I'm the king. Then they hurried, and each man took his garment and placed it under him on the bare steps and blew the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram with all Israel was defending Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Aram. For King Joram had returned to Jezreel to be healed of the wounds which the Arameans had inflicted on him when he fought with Hazael, king of Aram. So Jehu said, if this is your mind, then let no one escape from the city to go tell it to Jezreel. In other words, they're not going to know that he's coming, right? He's saying, if this is what God wants, I'm going to be able to have a sneak attack, right? So he rides in a chariot, went to Jezreel, so Joram was lying there. Ahaziah, the king of Judah, had come down to see him. And the watchman standing on the tower, and he saw the company, and he said, hey, I see somebody coming. And Joram said, take a horseman and send him to meet, and let's see what he says. And say, is it peace? Are you coming to fight me, or is it peace? And what does he say? He doesn't answer. What have you to do with peace?
Help you up and out, fight wars and get wounded and stuff.
Yeah.
What have you got to do with things? Yeah.
He sent a second horseman who came to them and said, is it peace? Jehu answered, what have you to do with peace? Turn behind me. So he's telling them, they come out and they get behind him.
Join me.
Join me.
Mhm.
The watchman reports even came to them, and the watchman reported even came to them and did not return. The driving is like the driving of Jehu, the son of Nimshi, when he drives furious. What's that a picture of? Determined to fulfill God's call. And what's so interesting is that these guys, if this king was so great, those men on the wall that are asking if it's peace or not, they were really loyal, they would not have gotten behind Jacob. They would have run back and said, hey, I think there's gonna be a fight here.
It's coming.
It's coming, but they didn't do that. They got right behind it. So he's driving furiously, right? And it says, go to the next page. He's driving furiously. He says, get ready. They make the chariot. Joram says, get ready. Because he's going to ride out, right? I thought, man, this is crazy. And they made his chariot ready. Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went up, each in his chariot, and they went out to meet Jehu and found him in the property of where? The vineyard of David. Oh my gosh, which is right next to what? Where the king lives,
Yeah.
right? When Joram saw Jehu, he said, is it peace? And here is his answers. What peace, so long as the harlotries of your mother Jezebel and her witchcraft are so many? And Joram reigns about and flees. And he's telling Ahaziah, hey man, this is it. We're going to have a fight. Jehu drew his bow with his full strength and shot Joram between his arms, and the arrow went through his heart and he sank in his chariot. Then Jehu said to Bidkar, his officer, take him up and cast him into the property of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For I remember when you and I were riding together after Ahab his father, that the Lord laid this oracle against him. How does he remember all this? I mean, why do you think God reminded him? What do you think that is going on here? You know, when God put things in our mind to remind us of stuff, we should pay attention. Because that's, I think,
Well, and a
that's
judgment against a king or a king's family would be
pretty big.
very memorable.
Yeah. He said, surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his son, says the Lord, and I will repay you this property, says the Lord. Now then take and cast him into the property according to the word of the Lord, and that the Lord speaking to him saying it. When Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house, and Jehu pursued him and said, shoot him too in the chariot. So they shot him at the ascent of Gur, which is at Ibli, but he fled to Megiddo and died there. Then the servants carried him to chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his grave with his fathers in the city of David. Now in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, Ahaziah became king of Judah. When Jehu came to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her eyes and adorned her head and looked out the window. As Jehu entered the gate, she said, "Is it well, Zimri, your master's murderer?" Why, that thing is bad. Then he lifted up his face at the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And 2 or 3 officials looked down at him. He said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down.
Well, the officials weren't on her side.
They were not on her side, so they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. When he came in, he ate and drank, and he said, "Now see this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." They went to bury her, but they found nothing more than of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Therefore they returned and told him, and he said, "This is the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the property of Jezreel, the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel will be as dung on the face in the field, in the property of Jezreel, so they cannot say, this is Jezebel."
Completely true. Completely enough.
Nothing much.
It should be a movie.
I said, this will make a good movie, but
Yeah.
they probably don't have a good watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from bells coming out to dogs eating.
Yeah.
Jezebel.
Yeah, I can guarantee Hollywood.
Sexual
would put worse than
immorality
that.
and the temple of Baal and the people of Israel made to do that. For people of Judah.
We watched
Jezebel
we watched the 10
kills
this weekend.
Jehoram and Ahijah. He wipes out the kings, 2 nations, and the mother,
Mhm.
all basically in one fell swoop. Bam, it's done. And what I thought was so interesting is we get to the next little section here. Where it says, make sure that we got all this. So we get to 2 Kings 10. We could not believe this. Now Ahab had 70 sons. And Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the rulers of Jezreel, the elders and guardians of the children of Ahab. So Ahab's sons were under tutorship. Okay, there were people, teachers and leaders and people taking care of these 70 sons. What the age group of them is, I mean, I don't know. There's some that had to be like 35, 40 years old to, I don't know. I have no idea. There's a lot of them. Okay,
So there's a lot of mamas.
there's a lot of mamas. And so what does he do? He is a letter writing campaign. Okay, letter writing campaign. And this is what happens, all right? He writes the first letter. It says, "Now when this letter comes to you, since your master's son are with you, master's sons are with you, as well as the chariots and the horses and a fortified city and weapons, select the best and fittest of your master's sons and set him out on his father's throne and fight for your master's house." Fight with him. Get the best. That's what he's saying. What did they respond?
No. We're scared.
Yeah, these 2 kings didn't stand. How are we gonna stand? These guys haven't even run an army. They don't have any skill. And the one who's over the household, and he who was over the city, and the elders and the guardians of the children sent word to Jehu, "We're your servants. All that you say to us, we will do. We will not make any man king. Do what is good in your sight." He writes the second letter. Okay, so he writes the first one, number 1, fight me, and they are afraid. Second letter. If you're on my side and you will listen to my voice, take the heads of the men, your master's sons, and come to me at Jezreel tomorrow at this time. Now the king's son, 70 persons, were with the great men of the city who were rearing them. The letter came to them. They took the king's son and slaughtered them, 70 persons, put their heads in baskets, and sent them to him at Jezreel.
Just gets worse and worse.
It
Yeah,
does get
yeah.
worse.
Kill the sons and send them to me. That's what he says. So when the messenger came and told him, saying they brought the heads of the king's sons, he said, put them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning. Now in the morning he went out and stood and said to all the people, you are innocent. Behold, I conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all these? Who killed his children? Know then that there shall fall to the earth nothing of the word of the Lord which the Lord spoke concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord has done what he spoke through his servant Elijah. What is he saying here? God, it's God's will. Isn't that what he's saying? There's nothing that's happening here that's outside of God's plan.
Right.
So Jehu killed all who remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his acquaintances and his priests, until he left him without survival. So these guys that were taking care of these sons were loyal to Ahab, right? And Joram. He kills them too. They think. So look at their motive. They didn't try to hide these guys. They said, hey, I need to live too. So they went ahead and took them out, took out those kids, those 70 young men, and bring them. And that's the test. That's what the letter was about. Where are your loyalty? If they had said, no, we're fighting, that would have been a different thing. It would have been a much more respectable thing for them to do. But that's not what they did. Right? So he kills everybody. No survivor. He arose and departed and went to Samaria on the way while he was at Beth head of the shepherds. Jehu met the relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, who are you? We're the relatives of Ahaziah. We've come down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen mother. Okay, well, what are they saying? Why is Judah going to Israel to meet the family of Ahab? It's not good. He takes them.
Do you think he overstepped his boundary a little bit though? Because he said kill the family of Ahab. He didn't say, God didn't instruct him to kill.
There's nothing that says that he instructed him to do that. That's right. But what is he basing this on?
Where their loyalty lies.
Where the loyalty lies, because he also killed all the men that took care of those sons. All those loyal people, because when you're the king, you've got that level of corruption. Now, whether he should have done it or not, maybe he's not a godly man. He's not a godly man.
Are we talking about Jehu now?
Jehu is not a
Still?
godly man.
Okay, but he was anointed by God.
He was anointed by God.
But he had a job to do.
Can God use evil men to fulfill his will?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all that's happening here. And what is he doing when he does this? What is he developing? What kind of kingdom is he developing? A kingdom that fears him.
Kingdom that fears.
Fears Jehu.
Jehu.
Okay.
So he departed and he kills these guys too. When he departed, he met Jehonadab, the son of Reshab, coming to meet him. And he greeted him and said, is your heart right as my heart is with yours? And Jehonadab answered, it is. He said, if it is, give me your hand. He gave him his hand. He took him up with him into the chariot. He said, come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So he made him ride in his chariot. This is so interesting. Because he's saying, hey, I've got a lot of zeal for the Lord. Like, I'm doing a good job here. When he came to Samaria, he killed all who remained to Ahab in Samaria until he had destroyed him, according to the word of the Lord, which he had spoken to Elijah. Sounds like God saying, I mean, he's interpreting what you mean that, for sure. Jehu gathered all the people, said that Ahab served Baal a little, Jehu will serve him much. Now, so
What?
interesting, he's just faking. He
It's all-
summons all
all
the
a- all an
prophets.
act.
Right, now he summons the prophets.
Okay.
Ah,
Baal, prophets, you think this is in God's plan? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he kills them all. He kills all of them. He has them, it's like, oh my gosh. He says, all his priests, let no one be missing from a great sacrifice for Baal. It's you. Whoever is missing shall not live. But Jehu did it cunningly, so that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. So they come. There's not a man left who did not come. They went into the house, and they're filled. So the arrogance of these Baal worshippers. Okay, our king's gone. The king's son is gone. Jezebel's gone, but this guy wants to be in charge too. We're just going to give him the same game that we give to everybody else, right? So,
I'm sorry.
yes, go ahead.
So Jehu is not a godly man.
No.
He wants everybody to fear him as he reigns king.
Right. He has an
But-
edict from the Lord. See, this is the thing that's really important to understand. You look at you look at the history, let's say at the history of England or Martin Luther, people like that. Yes, people like that. Those kinds of people, when they, and just go through the kitchen and it's kind of to the right, we'll see it.
Watch that step.
Yeah, there's a step there. So when you, and you can leave the door open, that's probably, that probably should be better. I just didn't want to chat when we were on.
now there's a cat.
Yes. My son, he loves cat. Anyway,
One that she inherited, I'm sure.
yeah. So the point that I'm getting at is, if this guy had truly been a godly person, what would he have got rid of? The two golden calves. He didn't get rid of them. He didn't stop any of that worship. He just stopped the worship of Baal, because Baal is attached to Ahab and Jezebel. She's the one that introduced it.
So he was not a good enough king to destroy all of the idols, just the ones that were connected with.
Right. With Ahab, because that's the announcement in his brain to do that.
And now it's
It just sounds like he likes to kill people.
Well, it sounds like he feels very justified. Look,
Yeah.
he's a captain of an army. He's used to being in fights and killing people. And he gets anointed to become the king.
I was gonna say, does he use that a little bit? But no, these were instructions
They were the instructions.
from God, yeah.
Right. So it says here in verse 28, Jehu eradicated Baal out of Israel. However, as for the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin, from these Jehu did not depart, even the golden calves that were at Bethel, that were at Dan. The Lord said to Jehu, because you've done well in executing what's right in my eye and have done to the house of Ahab according to what was in my heart, your sons shall go to the fourth generation sit on the throne. But Jehu was not careful to walk in the law of the Lord to guide Israel with all his heart. He did not depart from sin, which made Israel sin. And so what happened? In those days, the Lord began to cut off portions from Israel. Hazael defeated them throughout the territory of Israel. From the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, the Manassites, from Aor, which is by the valley of Ornon, even Gilead and Bashan. So he reigned over Israel 28 years. Jehu had 28 years to get it right. Right? But he did not act carefully. In other words, he did what he needed to do. I think within him there was probably a desire to be the king. He gets the anointing. It's like, this is it. God's behind me. I'll do whatever he needs to do to get it. He gets it. And then he gets rid of what he thinks should get him lesson. And then he goes back to the same way we always did. He liked that worship of those golden calves. Right? He's king a long time, 28 years, longer than Joseph. He only ruled 25 years. Let me ask you guys, what is the message of this study?
There's a limit to God's patience.
God will not allow us to go on forever in our sin. What else is going on here?
Well, God will use who he needs to use, whether you're a faithful follower or whether you're not. He will use you for his purposes.
He uses ungodly men to show his people their sin. What's wrong with the church today in America?
There's many things wrong with the church.
Why is the church so upset? I had to really pray about this. I really, especially after the study, I had to really think. We know, we did Revelation. We know that there's an end. We talked about it earlier, that things are coming to an end. God's not going to allow us to go on forever in our sin, right? It's going to come to an end. He uses ungodly men to show his people what their sin is. Why? Why does he do that? Why does he do that?
Well, just like these people, he wants us to turn back to him. Turn to him.
God wants us to teach him first. So if you won't seek him in the good times, we tend to seek him in the bad times. Why don't we seek him in the good times?
Because they're good times.
Things
We
are
don't
going-
need
Things are going well.
him.
In good times, we have no needs.
We're just satisfied with the way things are.
And we're willing to put up with little things in order to not rock the boat. Because what happened? We might have to suffer a little
How would I
something.
have calamity? I have to share this with y'all. They asked me to be the nurse for this women's retreat on Saturday. And so I asked Pastor, can I take the AED with me? Not that I'm expecting that we would need to use it, but it's much better to have it than to not have it. And so they looked at the calendar, so there's nothing at the church on Saturday, so yes, we can take the AED. So when I went Friday afternoon to pick it up, I was swung by the office just to remind him, that I had the AED, nobody freak out that it's stolen or whatever, I wanted to remind him. And these are the words that he said to me: sometimes when you're well prepared, bad things happen, so don't let the devil see that. I just looked at him and said,
Okay.
Kevin, Kevin.
Well, it's already been seen, so.
Same knows I have it in my hand.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the funniest thing ever. Don't let the devil see it.
But what happens here? What is it that keeps us from standing firm? Because he uses calamity, right? That means he's gonna use ungodly people so that we can see where we're falling short, right?
It's so that we can grow our faith. It's always so we can grow our faith.
It's not just that. What is the other consequence of that? What does that do for the people, our family, those around us? Think about being a Christian in Hitler's era, and you taken to the concentration camp.
Yeah.
How many people do you think said, I'm not really a Christian, I'm not really a Jew?
Probably a whole lot.
What, God, in good times, we have no need. Willing to put up with little things or to not wrong.
Well, and talked about that. We need to stand up. And
Okay, so think about standing up. What does it mean to stand up?
put yourself out of your comfort zone when it's required.
Stand up.
Or sometimes you might have to be out of your comfort zone.
Speak it.
Yes.
What I was, stand up when it's required. When it's not required, live faithfully. Think about, what did Jehu say about Jehoshaphat? What did he say about him? He was a man who fully followed the Lord.
Yeah.
How many people knew about Jehoshaphat? Other nations even knew about it. Think about the lands that left, where the Edom and Libnah revolted because they wanted to be under a godly man. What I'm
But
getting,
also the country was at peace. They were not.
well, yeah, because
Because they knew the reputation and that he was a man of God and that his God protected them.
right, right. And so when his sons started failing, Ahaziah was the son of Jehoram. Jehoram was a horrible king. We kept waiting for the next guy to get better. Surely he'll get better. But then we're looking
But
at
how?
the relationships.
How do they get better? If that's all they've seen.
Well, it isn't all they've seen. They had Jehoshaphat. They had the history. They
And they
had
had that example
the
that
examples.
Where does it?
But what are they doing? They're choosing. And what was the nation doing at that time? Was the nation choosing to just say, well, we're just gonna have to, just pray about it. I'm not talking about revolting, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about taking up arms and
Right,
fighting.
yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that we should live our lives prepared for the worst. And how do we do that? Look at Jehoshaphat's example.
you live a life that's pleasing to God.
Right. In your church, in your churches. I'm going to ask this question without sounding weird.
That's okay. We're used to weird.
How committed is your church? Your leadership, your great leadership. Right?
Yeah.
Gotta be Bible based.
I just don't want to be that church that's sneaker on the cold.
Yeah.
You don't want to be led to see them. Is there a lot of that going on in the church?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed
A
that.
lot of Laodicea
Okay.
behavior going on in the church. Why?
It's easier to go along, get along.
Those men that worked for
Jehoram quickly, works for Ahab, quickly turned their 70 sons over. Which came to shut, they took them over. They, matter of fact, they cut their heads off.
Yeah.
Their heads.
We'll do that.
They did it themselves.
They did it themselves.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you, calamity is coming. Are we ready? Do we know? Are we planning and preparing for what might happen? To be a witness for the Lord, regardless of what is in front of us.
I think sometimes coming to church is not always comfortable. And I think people want to come to church to feel comfortable. And when something is required of them, because they're calling or something, that's when, that it's too hard. And,
It's not gonna be.
yeah,
We always know from Pastor Colston about money. And you see that people that show up, I mean, they want to hear about that. And they don't want to hear about, serving home sexuality, that was brought up, we had people get up.
Think there's gonna start being shaking of the church?
I think it's being shipped now.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that happening?
I think we're just having, I think there's some revolution going on.
Because of us, we're
God
all,
will not allow sin to go on forever.
Yeah.
I really like going to small church.
Well, you just have to know where you're gonna draw the line, like the churches that are allowing, homosexuals to be leaders in the church.
Or
teachers
they're
in the
doing
church,
performing homosexual marriages.
and performing homosexual marriages, and I understand that their sin is no blacker to God than my sin.
Right.
I understand all that.
Right.
But where's the repentance?
They want to come, and this has been talked about for years, they want to come to church.
One thing, Kathy.
Yeah, to make it, they want to come to church and be told what they're doing is okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
And because we're God's children too. So we must be okay.
and it's
Like-
true, they are God's children.
They are God's children. And
So-
but where's the repentance?
So, and I can always tell when, Little League baseball begins. You know what I mean?
All the attendance drops off.
Yeah.
Because they have games on
They start
Sunday.
having games on Sunday.
They have tournaments on Sunday. And people of our church who, and I don't want to be critical or judgmental, people of our church who are very faithful members, always there. But then there's baseball. Or whatever.
Or
fill in the
whatever,
blanks
for us,
for
it was swimming. And
And then you're just not there. And I've had conversations with, these little kids having dance. I've had a lady tell me, we just can't be there because we have all these dance recitals. And my child is 8 and someday she'll want to try out for cheerleader. And if she doesn't do this dancing stuff now, she won't have a chance then. And I'm thinking, really? Is that what we're really doing now?
we have gotten to that though.
We have, and these are wonderful, sweet friends, precious children. But when baseball, when dance, when this begins, you just see some of the families. They'll be there on Wednesday night, unless there's a game. They'll be there, vacation Bible school. They'll be there for everything. But if there's baseball, if there's whatever it might be, they really justify it by saying, well, if we don't do this, then my child will not advance. My child will not be on the best team. My child will not have, so we really have to do this. But do we really have to? I don't know. I don't remember it being
Well, I
so.
think parents could stand up and say, we're not going to do that.
We're not gonna play on Sunday.
We're not gonna
And
be
we have
there on
enough
Sunday.
people. The problem is that too many people who are unchurched.
That's exactly right.
I made a comment, to my kids one time that when I was growing up, on Sunday morning, the only cars you see leaving the neighborhood were people that were headed for church.
Exactly.
That's all the cars that you saw leaving, because grocery stores only opened, to sell groceries, you couldn't go shopping at the
Blue
mall.
Law.
And so only people who were going to church left the neighborhood, and I said,
How long ago has that been?
Well, it's been a long
It's
time,
been a
I'm
long time.
At least
73,
About
so
25 years.
I was
I think longer than
longer
that.
than that.
longer than that.
It's been longer than that.
Yeah, probably been like 40 years.
I was, yeah, at least. No, because I've been married 50 years and
Yeah,
that didn't.
it already
yeah,
started to change, yeah, in the 1960s.
Probably so.
And families will have what sound like valid reasons. This sweet, sweet family that I know, sweet boys. They are in attendance anything that happens except Sunday mornings. And the reason is because their father runs some restaurant in Winston somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's very busy during the week, during late meal times. And so the kids never get to see their dad, but he doesn't work on Sunday mornings. So they all stay home together and do dad things. Now, doesn't that sound sweet and nice? And it sounds great. But those little children are never in church on Sunday. Right? Never. But
Why didn't Dad come with them to church?
they do dad things. You know, they go to the, they go to the beach, or they go here, they go there, they watch a movie. They 4 little boys. And it's sad to me. I mean, a sweet family, sweet kids, but Sunday morning is family time. God time.
Let me be a resource of faith, of encouragement, of truth. Let me be that to people. Let me be somebody that people want to ask questions. That's the answer. I think it's okay. We don't have to be perfect, and we don't have to be scholars, and we don't have to know all these things. But if we are able, we say something to somebody. Like, have you thought about church? I had the most awesome opportunity to listen to one of my friends who's Jewish, who's not devoutly Jew, but she's looking for all this new age stuff. I gave her my testimony, really talked to her, and she came back a month later. Her next appointment was like, I'm so, I don't think that you know, thank you for being able to talk to somebody and not be in your face, if you're going to hell, you know, it's probably the truth, it's that to look at people as, if I was given the commission of Jacob, right? How would I do it today? God said, go out there and, get rid of sin. Right, he's not gonna say it that way, but you know what I'm trying to say here. How would I respond to that? What would need to be going on in me? If Jehu had sought the Lord and prayed and said, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to handle this? He had zeal, lots of zeal.
That God would have given you the resources that you need to be able to complete what he wants you.
And that's probably why Jehu was picked, because that was an awful task. I want you to get rid of them. I want you to completely get rid of them. I want you to do it in a way that people will look and be afraid. And that's what I
And
think.
he picked his whole soldier to do it.
Yeah,
Someone
he
that had the
picked the person to
resources
do it.
and the,
Are we called soldiers?
yes.
We are.
Do we have resources?
On more Christian
What
soldiers.
Yeah.
fight are we doing? What fight are we doing?
Sunday morning baseball, apparently, yeah.
But you see what I'm saying,
There's lots of
right?
things. There's lots of things.
I don't read too close because I'm saying.
Get your own family to church. There's the first fight.
And you know what? That is the most important fight.
I know.
Is what is in my own family, even though they are all adults. I still have a responsibility. I still ask my children, do you like to go to church?
I know.
How about going to church? Don't stop
And
asking.
Jenny probably thinks every time I call her, all I'm doing is to check and see if they found a church yet.
That's okay. But you know what? Does she talk to you every day?
Not every day,
But you talk regularly and you're the reminder.
Yeah.
You're the little bell that goes off and says, Jenny, remember church? Remember how you used to be in Christian church? Remember how great that was? We just,
you know you need to be in a family of God. You know you need to be joining with like believers. You know all these things that you've learned all your life. It's easier not to get out of bed on a Sunday morning.
Yeah,
What's gonna have to happen, and I think the next thing, like what I have said to my children is, well, I guess what you need to get you to church is a disaster.
and that.
Because if you cannot listen now, God will get your attention, and I'm praying for whatever it takes for you to get saved.
There are some very rebellious people that will say, so what has God done for me? Why should I go? What has he done for me?
Should be really careful about saying things like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I heard someone say one time, I will never forgive, and it was a horrible situation that
What has he
happened.
done
And
for
she
you?
said, I will never forgive those people. And I mean, they like bludgeoned her grandparents to death. It was an awful thing. And she said, I will never forgive. I will, oh. I mean, it's about, I'm going, better be careful about saying it.
Yeah, be careful.
And, because we're called to. We're
Well, the
called.
thing is, it's
yeah.
okay to be angry.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And say, you know, when I have those kinds of conversations, I
Sure.
say, forgiveness is one step at a time.
Mhm.
And I said, you will forgive parts and you'll forgive certain things. I said, but if you don't forgive, the consequence for you is incredible.
Yeah.
You'll be sick, and the rest of your life will not change. I had those conversations over legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate reason to be angry.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're angry over stuff that doesn't even have a valid leg.
Yeah.
to stand on.
And sometimes not what you did, but what someone did to you, and you're mad at God for letting that happen. Just kind of.
Okay, let's pray. Gotta get, we're way past time. So Father, I just thank you so much for all that you're doing. And I ask the Lord to help us with this study. Oh, it's like, oh. But Father, we know that you're in it. We ask you to bless it. Praise you, thank you. That everyone have an awesome holiday. That they have time to rejoice in you and speak to their children about you in a way that really honors you, Father. I thank you and I praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
See you guys in 2 weeks. My online people.
True.
Yeah.
From Louisiana.
I'm going to Louisiana.
I texted Aaron today
Uh-huh.
to see about changing my hair appointment.